Sermons usually begin with stories, but I don't want to tell you a story. There are too many already living in us, the stories of people we've lost, people we've loved. And today we're living together into a new chapter of the shared story of our faith community. We begin sermons with stories to create shared experience, but so many of us are already sharing this grief. Were we in a room together, I might actually ask us to move in closer, right next to each other, so we can hold hands and touch arms and hear each other breathing. Our bodies need the comfort of each other. That's true as we share this particular loss, but it's also true as we've come through a Thanksgiving holiday without hugging grandchildren or walking arm in arm with that cousin you only see once a year or baking a pie beside a beloved aunt. I know some of you haven't seen your own children or parents in months, and all of us were grieving people who've died even before we lost hope yesterday. What I have for you today is this shared space where we can't hold each other, but we can see and hear each other. We can gaze at each other's faces and make promises for hand holding later. And I have words. Words don't eliminate grief. They can't even push it aside to make room for freer breaths. Words, mine, yours, any poet worth their salt. Words can only sink into the raw, vulnerable places to remind us where grief lives in our bodies. Words might find a way to hold grief, to cuddle it, rocking it gently. Or they may catch grief in free fall, grabbing on just long enough for grief to settle back into your bones where it will rest for a while. At best, words bring us temporary comfort, shifting our attention from our hearts to our heads, where the grief is more distant. But words soon dissolve, and we're left with the paradoxical weight of loss. As your minister, I wish this wasn't true. I want to have the words that will remove your pain, the pain we're currently holding together, and all pain, future and past. I want to tell you it'll all be all right. I want to say the right thing, the magic thing, the exact thing you need to hear to make your pain disappear. I want you to come to church and leave feeling free, feeling light, feeling like some gorgeous scarf blowing in the wind as a result of whatever words I've strung together. But that's not how grief works. It lives in us. It takes root and defines us. That's not to say we always feel sad, but that grief is itself transformative. We stretch, we deepen, we know the world better, we hold others better. We become kinder, softer, more compassionate, and gentler once grief settles in. Loss opens spaces within us where we hold others in their grief. A man in my town is a reporter. While interviewing Vice President Biden several years ago, he got a call that his 9-year-old was in the hospital. The interview was cut short. The man raced to the hospital where he stayed with his son for the next several months until his death. Every week, the vice president called him. Every week. How's your boy? He'd ask. That wasn't about politics or power. That was a man who had lost his young child, whose grief had opened a space in him so large he could hold another grieving father. All of us who have suffered a loss can feel that space. It's soft and both tender and strong, like a thick, scarred skin. So here we are again as a congregation. We've just lost so much this year. I won't be comparing deaths. Everyone has been weighted. Every person has been loved and is missed. And every time we lose one of our own, we carry a new sadness forward. Of course, Hope's death feels very heavy. We've lost so many people, and too many of them have been people of color in this congregation, in this city, and around the country. These are not losses we can afford. Hope, in particular, was a visionary for a compassionate future. She was joyful and kind and brought tremendous wisdom to our church and to the world. She taught with grace and generosity. After 30 years a member here, we've lost a giant in our faith and in our own community. It's also true that when a life ends, while it's so well and actively being lived, we're left with a different kind of emptiness. Unfinished conversations fill the room, questions hang in heavy air. Expectations of meeting, of speaking, of being together come up and are pushed down again and again. The experience of a shared life doesn't fade quickly. Carrie McAvoy, one of our intern ministers, experienced tremendous loss not long ago. The other day, she noted that grief and joy live very close to each other. In our brains, in our bodies, grief and joy bump up against each other. They fold over, enveloping the other and shifting back. The memory of one we've lost can begin with a laugh, which turns into sobbing and ends with a sense of sad sweetness. Grief is not linear. It's not all about sadness. It's also about anger, powerlessness, and fear, and gratitude. It's vulnerability and ferocity. It's both a roar and complete silence. It comes in waves. It will be a constant companion for a time. Then it ebbs. You can see the world with a little more clarity, and crash, it's back, pouring over you, overwhelming you, leaving you feeling breathless. And it ebbs again, moving away, giving you space. Over time, it seeps into your bones, making them stronger. And this grief becomes part of the skeleton of your body that moves with you, that holds you up. It happens over time, and it happens when we attend to it. Telling stories is one way we do that. After the service, we'll open this space for people who want to tell stories about hope or others we've lost this year. We will bear witness to our sadness and our joy of remembering our stories, and it will remind us how lucky we were and how lucky we still are to be together.